thing out here. What a way to go.
My whole life, all I ever wanted was friends. But no one ever wanted me back. So when I finally found people who did want me, I did everything I could to make them stay. And ever since then, I've lived my life in fear. That one day they'd find out who I really was, and they wouldn't want me anymore.
It's gone.
And welcome back to part 31, Final Fantasy 15, where today we're starting a two-part detour into episode Prompto, because it's the only DLC that was not going under an hour. This is probably the longest of the three. Well, I say that episode Ignis is the longest if you mess around with all the side stuff, which I didn't because it was just for extra points, whilst this is the longest if you're not. This one's about an hour and a half long, so it is split into two parts. And there's a hell of a lot of random details and things like that you can find that helps further explain what's going on in this episode, because this is sort of Prompto's big character development moment, is all of this episode. And although this is probably the weakest one in my opinion in terms of actual gameplay, because I think Prompto's gameplay is the least interesting. Like, it's still fun, but it's the least interesting of the four. This is the best episode in my opinion for other reasons, that being story. The story detail in this episode is really deep. There's a lot of lore building, a lot of story building, and a lot of character building in this in alone, and I love it for it. And we get more Ardyn time, so what more do you want?
Scanning production code. Unit 05953234 confirmed. Warning. This unit has been compromised.
What's going on?
Initiating retrieval of compromised unit.
She still remembers you after all these years.
You? Huh? What gives?
We can't have you spilling blood here. Although to most, this compound is known only as the first Magitech production facility. Birthplace of the myriad Magitech troopers and demons the Empire holds dear. To you, this place should have some sentimental value. After all, it is your home, sweet home.
Shut up.
I'm not the one who almost killed you.
You're rough.
You really ought to take a rest. Perhaps the estimable Chief Besithia will help heal that broken heart of yours.
Who the hell is that?
Oh, how quickly they forget. But fear not. I've no doubt a reunion would refresh your memory.
But we do have a gun now, thankfully, after our little encounter with Ardyn, and as that kind of implies, Prompto isn't Insomnia born. Something that he's been kind of hinting towards for a while. There's a lot of little conversations, or there was that one time where we were sat on top of the billboard, and Noct and Prompto just had a chat together, where Prompto heavily implied he's different, and we're going to be able to learn more of that as we go. I think worth mentioning, instead of it being like in the main game when you play as Prompto, in this episode, with the exception being the pistol, your limited ammo for guns will not regenerate. When you run out of ammo for a gun, Prompto will drop it on the floor and you'll have to pick up another one. Also, you can't carry two primary weapons. Your pistol is a secondary, because one of your primary slots will always be a sword, so you have a basic blade to swing with. It does pathetic damage and it should be your last resort, but it is there. But if you pick up another primary weapon, that will take your right slot, but if you pick up another primary weapon, it will replace the slot on your right, on that right, so you won't be able to have a rocket launcher and a machine gun like you can in the main game. Your bottom slot is still your grenades when you get them. If you put enough shots into an enemy to weaken them enough, you can stun them and put them into a vulnerable state. That vulnerable state will allow you to get a crack shot off. Crack shots doing ridiculous damage and ignoring enemies' defense. It's also worth mentioning in this episode that enemies will reach their vulnerable state far quicker than they do in the main game. So don't destroy an enemy, get them into a vulnerable state, ruin them with crack shot, and then go into the main game and expect it to be the same. You will be very disappointed. This is just a decision they made for this episode, I guess, to make it more balanced around Prompto, which is fair enough. The main game, I feel, does also do a good job at balancing Prompto somewhat, because he's frail as hell, but you can get a nice distance and keep the pressure on. And it gives us a few nice items along the way. And once again, the HUD has changed because it's an episode-specific thing.
Can't let them find me.
This one's probably the least interesting HUD to me, because Ignis's makes sense to be a cleaned-up version of Noctis's because of his relation and loyalty to the family. Gladios makes sense for being a lot rougher and aggressive because he's a rough and aggressive bloke. But Prompto's is just yellow. Well, I guess that the theming is yellow and white. White being because it's all snowy and frozen environment, and yellow, I guess, as like a theme colour for Prompto for it to be yellow. But I just don't think it looks as nice. Like the menu actually in the pause menu it looks alright, but on the actual HUD menu sort of thing it looks kind of stale because it's just yellow. But as you go around, Verstal, or Verstal, or however you pronounce his name, will always have these data logs you can find, proper traditional abandoned facility data logs that explain more of what's going on, but this also goes as far back as before the actual main events of the game, explaining things like the birth of the MTs, how they came around, like the Magitech troopers, and how they were made from demons. It will later talk about something from the Kingsglaive film, so I'll explain it now because once again there's a chance people following this, especially years from now, haven't seen the film so won't know what was missed. The most destructive weapon that caused the most carnage in Insomnia when it came to the Niflheim Empire taking over the throne was a giant, like 50-foot tall machine known as a diamond weapon. Yes, it's a reference to Final Fantasy VII, get over it. But the diamond weapon was built in this facility as well, and it was the same code and DNA that was built. It also built another machine we'll be seeing much later on in this episode, and the diamond weapon was one of Verstal's most treasured works because it managed to destroy all the defenses Insomnia had, break into the Crown City, and cause enough carnage to buy all the soldiers in their time to get to King Regis and assassinate him. The diamond weapon was eventually brought down by Nyx, one of the Kingsglaive who was still stationed in Insomnia City, after he was given the power by the Ring of the Lucii to do what needed to be done because he had a good heart. He had genuine intentions. He wasn't just trying to do it for his own gain. He was doing it because he knew he needed it to protect Lunafreya and destroy everything that was turning against Insomnia City, mainly being that diamond weapon. Anyways, this is what I highlight. We've picked up the Rapidus SMG, something that's usually normally in Prompto's arsenal, but because it's the DLC, it's not normally. When you run out of bullets of this thing, Prompto will just throw it to the ground. There's no recharge, there's no bar next to it, as you can see. Once it goes out, that's it. But there are other weapons, including a weapon that you can't normally get in the main game, that being a sniper rifle. And it's like the best weapon in this DLC, which is probably why it didn't make it into the main game when they made all the characters playable in the main adventure after all the DLCs came out. Which is a shame, because it would have been cool to be able to swap them out, but I get that this came later, this sort of thing. Also, nice little thing, you can't do it in the main game, but you can do it in this. If you get an enemy into a vulnerable state, you run up to them, you can do an overkill, where you boot their head off by the looks of it, and then you'll get their weapon straight away. It's the same as the stealth kill. If you get behind them when they're not unaware of you, and Prompto will automatically take their weapon. Anytime you see an armory or lockups like this, check them. I didn't there, so you ran past a weapon, but always worth checking them because you never know what surprises are in store. You'll never find grenades in those armory lockups, so grenades are always in little boxes that are floating around. Alright, that guy you want to stealth kill as the game kind of highlights, because he has a sniper rifle, so if we can get to him, snipe him, he's already in a good sniper spot. Also, sniper rifles are there, but it's like, no, get it the way they want you to, which is sneaking over. If you're not sprinting, Prompto will automatically enter a sneaking state, so don't worry about it too much, just don't sprint like a moron, because then you're probably going to get spotted. But as you see, he automatically picked up this the Sagita rifle. The rifle is an instant kill to any enemy that hits a critical spot on them. So enemies that are like human shaped, headshots, end of story. Things that aren't human shaped, you just got to work out what their weakness is. Like if they've got an armoured front, shoot them in the back and whatnot, but they are an instant kill on pretty much every enemy in this DLC because of the sheer power they deliver if you get a critical spot. If you don't get a critical spot, it might take two. Some enemies will still die in one regardless of where you snipe them from. Also, all these stationary enemies that you're seeing around. Also, I get really lucky here. I should have been spotted, but for some reason it didn't. But a defense node spots me instead.
Target detected. Eliminate immediately.
Defense nodes are annoying because they've essentially got a 360 vision. Although it looks like they have an eye, they do have a 360 vision. You can be right behind them and they'll just spot you. But as you can see, even by these like more heavily armoured guys, when I get a shot off on them, it just puts them down in one shot. As soon as I clock their head, they're down. But now we got more trouble. If you get caught, there will always be more enemies introduced to the fray. Some of them make sense because you saw there were stationary turned off MTs sitting in the middle and they became alive the moment that we were caught. But we managed to keep on top of it. Also, there's a guy with a rocket launcher running around, so I become a little concerned that we're going to get blown to smithereens and start running around a little bit. You do have invincibility frames rolling and during crack shots, so don't concern yourself with it too much. But the defensive nodes are annoying. They're like the mech enemies in the Neptunia games. I'm saying that like people play Neptunia games often, but that's the most recent thing I can think of. But all the mech enemies in Neptunia games, the thing you have to learn with them is that you can't sneak attack them because they have a 360 vision. You have to defeat them from afar if you want to get a free strike, or find a way to make yourself invisible to get that free strike. And it's the same with the defensive nodes in this. They might look like there's an eyeball so only looking in one direction, but they can see a full 360 around them, and will do so if you try. We get this nice little 5 seconds of outdoor bit to remind you, yeah, that you are in a frozen facility. We're not in Gralia though, because I remember when this episode came out there was a bit of confusion and people thought that this is Gralia. No, you're not in Gralia at this point. We're in a different facility somewhere in that frozen wasteland that we saw Noxus and Co travel past. Like, I'm sure if we looked out towards the cliff, if we looked far enough, we might be able to see a train track or Shiva. I'm kidding, of course, because I've never actually checked, but it's just worth mentioning we are in the frozen wasteland in a random facility that was probably built as an expansion out from Gralia. Which makes sense that there would be facilities as such, especially in this frozen wasteland, to make sure that resources and supplies can continue to make it to the capital. And also with the war going on between Insomnia and Niflheim, it also makes sense for you to have outposts further out to spot these things before they get close. Also, like, I can't remember if it's like a previous one or the one later on, but Vestal doesn't have the easiest time making demons into MTs straight away. He has to get some assistance from guess who before he can find it. And actually, now that I think about it, Vestal is the second to last member of the Niflheim army we've yet to see. Because we've seen Arden, we've seen Loki, we've seen Aranea, we've seen the guy whose name always slips my mind, who we tried to kidnap, failed, met in the extra facility, like failed to kill him there, and then Ravers killed in episode Ignis, that guy. We've still got the leader of Niflheim. We've yet to meet the Niflheim Emperor even, and of course Arden himself, the Chancellor. And now we've got Vestal.
The kingdom kidnapped one of those infants?
I wonder who the infant is.
No.
To be fair, it's not as straightforward as it first seems. Like, you might look at that and go, oh, so Prompto was the infant, so he is from Insomnia, he is from the Crown City, he was just like stolen and then like messed with. But no, it's never that straightforward. Once again, like I said, it's a Final Fantasy game, they could never play it that straight. And this is like the only time you're going to see me actually taking save points every so often. Which is probably this one's the easiest to recommend, because like Gladios you can get done in under half an hour, and Ignis you can save between chapters, so it's not that bad. But here, like, this is actually quite a long episode, and so using the save points might be wise if you end up not having enough time to do it all, sort of thing. Also defensive nodes, because that just reminded me, they can heal teammates. And a defensive node immediately spotted us as soon as we got here and alerted everyone to us, so now I'm trying to line it up and get the shot. Ow. And we managed to get it. Every time you hear like a sharp, like, ching sound, that means that someone is vulnerable and there is a crack shot opportunity. You have to be close to them, though, is the problem. And if the shing's very loud, it probably means you've got them more than once, and the sound effects have just overlapped. Also, this is quite funny. They expect you to move out, but I never do. The best decision I think to do is to hold out at this starting point and pick up weapons. And so all the enemies on the second wave do kind of spawn on you. But if you go over here, you do have a sniper rifle, which is why it's a good place to hold. Because the sniper rifles will respawn for you to get more of. So you can just let them go ahead without you. Move on. More will spawn in, rinse and repeat. If worse comes to it, you can jump into that mill area and pick up an assault rifle. Look, they're right here next to me, so I take a picture next to one to be just to be an arse, and then back out. Fair, I think I only take 2 selfies in this whole DLC, but it is fun to use selfie shot whenever. That sound effect, the one that went shh. And because it was a little louder, it's because we got 2. But they do balance it out than some other games with the sound effect, because some games when they overlap sound effects get really loud. Like if I ever do actually Let's Play a Neptunia game, you'll see what I mean, because they get proper loud if you like hit multiple enemies' weaknesses at once, or you kill multiple enemies at once. Especially if they give Rebirth 1 Plus the Victory 2 treatment. If they give NEP 1 remaster for PS4 the NEP 4 treatment, because NEP 4 gave every enemy like their own dialogue, and so they had their own death sound at the end of it, and so hearing the same death sound, like if you killed like a horde of 5 enemies, it was so loud if you killed all 5 of them in one attack. But if NEP 1, when it eventually gets to the West on PS4, because NEP 1 Rebirth was on Vita and PC, and NEP 1 Rebirth Plus is coming to PS4, and it came out in Japan, or is about to come out in Japan, one or the other, and we're getting a conference in November surrounding it, so I assume that's going to be when they announce it for the West. I hope. Either that or, NEP 5, either or, that'll do. I'll happily take NEP 5, because I've really gotten into the series. But either way, then we'll find out whether or not with NEP 1 it's just going to be NEP 1 again, just with cleaner graphics for PS4, or whether they're actually going to give it like some of the Victory 2 treatment and start upgrading a few things and changing it. There's also an update that was added to Cyber Dimension 4 Goddesses Online, which is a spin-off game that was only released in Japan. Yeah, it adds so many things. It's like if I ever Let's Play Cyber Dimension, which to be honest I kind of doubt it because the games are pretty boring. Like the game's fine and it's easy to play, but like don't play it for any longer than half an hour at a time because it gets boring quick. Yeah, sorry Prompto, but yeah, you're part of the system. You've got a barcode on your wrist. But like, I lost my trail of thought now. Thanks, Prompto. But like, if that update does come around, I'll definitely play the game again. But I doubt I'll Let's Play it. It's just we'll see, because the update adds things like New Game Plus, fixes a bunch of weird bugs. Like I don't know if it fixes it, but God, I hope it does.
How could he do that?
But there's a bug with like this Minotaur boss that you fight later in the game, and then if you're 100%ing it, you fight like 9 bloody times, where all of his attacks make you glitch into the ground by like a single frame, so you can't move. And the only way to get out of it is to swap who you're playing as, run away, so then the teammate will warp to you, and then you can swap back to them to continue playing as if you wanted to move around. Because if they say stuck in spot, yeah, you can still attack the Minotaur, but if the Minotaur does an attack that's supposed to knock you away, it will just hit you 10 times in a row and you'll fall flat dead. Which isn't fun.
Deep breaths.
Also, yeah, on the experimental thing, they were all just bald, Prompto-looking people. He made a template and he just continued doing it. Prompto was made here.
My friend, do you recall the child who was stolen from this facility?
The one those Lucians absconded with?
Precisely. I thought you might like to see the fine young man he's become these 20-odd years later. So as thanks for bringing your pets to Insomnia, I've brought the boy to you. The time has come to meet your maker. Any questions for Daddy dearest? Father and son. Oh, how I love bringing families together.
No! It's not true! You're wrong, damn it! I don't care what he says. This place will never be my home. My home is in Lucis. Not here.
Research log year 756, day 98. Finally, my demon-infused Magitech armor is complete. I have christened my creation Diamond Weapon. It has exhibited an extremely unstable psyche, immediately unleashing unmitigated horrors upon activation. destructive capabilities, however, are indeed beyond compare. Not even the impenetrable insomnia could withstand its onslaught. Why, the Crown City would fall in a mere matter of minutes. The Stone of Legend will soon be mine. To think that in less than a month's time, the crystal will be mine to play with as I please.
So he's the one behind the attack on Insomnia. He planned the whole thing. Everything we lost that day is gone because of him.
What's the matter? Have you never seen a man turn before? If those Lucians hadn't intervened, you could have turned too. Because you were cloned from this genius's genes, born of my own flesh and blood. You are but one of millions, created to serve our great empire in the Magitech infantry.
To serve you?
Yes. And now you've finally come home to Niflheim, my son.
Shut up! You're wrong. I'm a Lucian! I am not one of your experiments!
Not anymore. Now you're nothing but a failure. I ought to return you whence you came. Perhaps then you might serve some useful purpose.
Never!
With your help, my ascension to divinity is now all but complete. Soon, neither the kings of Lucis nor the gods themselves will be able to challenge my reign.
Look what you've done. You've gone homicidal. No, patricidal.
No.
You lose your friends and murder your family. Now you've no one left.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Vital functions decreasing. Plasmodium activity index increasing. Demonification complete. Initiating transfer to Unit XDA 1002, Immortalis.
You always play hard to get like this?
Aranea.
Save it, Blondie. On your feet. So this is that new model they're working on. I don't know what's got you so shook, but you can deal with it later. Let's move. I'm only gonna say this once. Lose your will to live and you lose all hope of me helping your sorry ass. Got it?
Understood, Aranea, got it. Well, after that interesting moment of just killing our technical father, I say technical because I don't think it really counts. He created us with laboratories and machinery and whatnot. He didn't actually, like... I don't know, it's complicated. It's science. Anyway, this section you're at a time limit to get to the snowmobile over there. They give you a lot of time because they expect you to fight every enemy along the way, but there's no requirement to. So you're going to see me fight for a little bit and then just get a move on. Especially because Aranea is going to kick a lot of butt for us to help get a move on. And so this is why I waited until after we went to Tenebrae before I decided to do episode Prompto, because it would make sense to me for Aranea to find out about Prompto being missing and then go look for her at the end of Tenebrae, at the end of meeting her at Tenebrae. And when you get over here, I decide to shoot a star shell at them just to be a dick, and I immediately get karma for it. Let's see. I immediately get knocked into the snowmobile by an explosion.
But what about you?
I said I'll catch up. Let's go.
Alright, Arne. By the way, I like her costume for episode Prompto. I much prefer it over a Dragoon costume. It looks more natural on her. Oh, that was another point where, like, I was quite concerned it had crashed. Look, I'm blaming it on the Terror Wars event update, because I never had these stutters until that update, and now that update came out, it gets stutters like that for random. But this is a snowmobile bit, and what's the first thing I do? Press the wrong button and get off. Yeah. But ignore that. You can change the camera angles with one of the bumpers, and I think it's L1 changes camera angles, and R1 will just open fire. You have unlimited ammo, and you have an SMG with this, so you can just shoot as you drive. The controls kinda suck on this, I'm not gonna lie. They're not... like, they work fine if you're going in a straight line, but if you go over a jump or you try and take a sharp turn, it sometimes does feel like you're at the mercy of the machine. Like, if luck decides to let you get away with it and keep you going, you will, but if not, you won't. Which I don't really approve of, because it's like there's a post-event thing you can mess around with, like a mini game where you do time trials going up and down this hill in the snowmobile, and getting the 3 stars or getting the gold for it so you can get the trophy, that was a pain in the backside. Like, the hardest one is the first trial, so once you do the first one, the second and third should follow suit not too long later. But it's just a fact of the matter that the amount of times where it's failed because the controls just gave up. Also, what we passed there, I won't be showing off in the Let's Play because it's something that you have to go back for, and it feels a bit odd to go out of sequence. But essentially, there's certain positions in the map where if you stop at them, you can take a highlight picture of it as you get knocked off, where it'll just be like a special, like, zoomed out picture, sort of like when Prompto would ask for the "hey, let's take a picture here" side quest when we're in a movie. It's that sort of thing. We'll set up the camera and make a nice picture, but it's just of him. And don't get me wrong, some of them are pretty cool, but I just decided against it in the end. I said, well, okay, if I bump into one and it makes sense for me to be able to do it, I'll show it. If not, never mind. And just, there's like, spoiler from now, it doesn't happen. We don't bump into one. Or we don't get to one as close enough to one that I know of for it to matter. Also, you're going to see us have a bit of trouble here, because I get caught a few times and have a bit of trouble getting on the snowmobile, because you have to be on the snowmobile for the final jump. It won't let you take the final jump at the end of the slope without it. You can't just run away down it. It won't let you. Eventually it lets me get a move on, and I think we're in the clear for the rest of the run. Oh, so I get to take this jump as well, because why not? Whee! You can also upgrade the snowmobile, but we'll get to that probably next time, because I'm looking at the length of this video and how much is left in it. We don't really mess with it too much until the second half of this very long event. So it fades to dark, but it's just loading in the next section and this little cutscene. I'll keep talking over this one because it's not too important, but all we need to do now is head to a campsite not too far away. After Prompto has to get his bearings together, his hair holds quite nicely despite being sideways. I mean, that must be a really magic beanie for it to hold his hair like that so well. Come on, Prompto, up you get. Anytime you like.
Catch you later, Arnea.
Yeah, we'll, obviously we're going to see Arnea again. There's no way she'd lose to that situation. She's way too powerful and way too badass. That's the thing, I like it when you have those sort of characters where it's like you're not even remotely concerned something bad's going to happen to them because they're just good. They're a side character as well, so you know they won't be too badass to live, sort of thing. They're not too powerful that you know they're going to kill them off. She's a side character and she kicks butt, so you know there's actually a good chance she'll make it. In any situation she ends up in, you know she'll see the other side of. I mean, there are the few exceptions, of course there is, there always is. But it is that sort of thing where it's like, yeah, I'm sure we're fine. But as we hop back on, all we need to do is head to the rendezvous point, which is a campsite. Yay! Like the last proper campsite we see in the entire main run of the game. And it's in a DLC. I'll say that there's one lone campsite literally just called the final campsite that we'll get to in chapter 14, I believe. But that's in chapter 14. Like, for how much emphasis there is on camping, like when it was in the trailers and whatnot, and like making the resources and whatnot, as soon as you get into the second half of the game, it's just dropped. Same with the open worldness. You've probably noticed since the moment we entered the chapter 9, there's been no real open worldness. This is an open space that we're in now, and there are little side things we can do, which I do show off one before like the end of episode Prompto. I can't remember when I show it off. I think I show it off on the other side of all of this, if I'm honest, of this part. I think I'll do it next time, but but this is like the last proper open space we've got until the end of the game, really. But that being said, we've got a cutscene coming up, so I gotta shut up again.
Almost as good as what Iggy used to make. Oh. Well, at least it's quiet for a change. Damn it. What the hell am I thinking?
Don't tell me you thought that would work. Prompto, right? You could at least look happy to see me. I ran into your buddies in Tenebrae. You've got them worried sick. You gonna go see him or what?
I can't. I can't. I'm not like them. I was born here, in Niflheim, all this time, and I've never told them. And that's not even the worst part. I wasn't born into a happy family. I was made, created in some laboratory. The entire reason I exist is to make Noct and all of them miserable. How could I possibly see them? They'd never accept the real me.
You spent all that time driving around together and you still don't know what kind of guys they really are. In case you forgot, your princely pal and I weren't always on such friendly terms. But you know what? He put all that aside and asked me to make sure you were safe.
He did?
Think he'd do that for someone who makes him miserable?
Is everybody okay?
All things considered, I guess. Sounds like they've been through a lot since you left, but they're still dead set on getting to the capital.
Hope they make it.
They'd have a better shot with you around.
Did they say anything else about me?
Not that I can recall.
Right.
His Highness was so worried about you he could barely speak. But don't worry, I whipped him into shape.
So, he doesn't hate me after all.
Look, I can tell you want to get back together with him. So why not let them know?
You think they'd let me back? After all this? And even if they did let me back, I'd probably cause them nothing but trouble. I don't know how I could live with myself.
Because you're doing such a great job of living with yourself now. Do you then? You worry so much about what other people want from you, you don't even know what you want anymore. Your life isn't yours to live. Forget about what everyone else thinks for a second and figure out what it is you're really after here. I'm going after that new model in the morning. You're on your own now, kid.
Aranea gives the best pep talk that I think about it, but that's the end of the first half of episode Prompto. So next time on Final Fantasy 15 we'll be channeling into more of Prompto's self-worth and hopefully getting a bit of confidence back in the poor guy. Because there's a lot on his mind, being, you know, made, not born, and being from Niflheim, so, you know, the enemies of the insomnia and whatnot. But that being said, we'll discover that next time. So until then, you guys take care now.